The divorce papers were sitting on our kitchen counter next to a $3,000 designer handbag receipt. My wife of 8 years looked me dead in the eye and said, "If you really loved me, you'd find a way to give me the life I deserve." That's when I realized I'd been married to a stranger. My name is Damian, and 8 years ago, I thought I'd found my soulmate. I was 24, a fresh computer science graduate working my first real job as a software engineer, pulling in a decent $45,000 a year. Sarah was different then, genuinely different. She wore thrift store dresses to our college coffee dates, laughed at my terrible programming jokes, and dreamed about the little house we'd save up for together. We'd sit in her cramped dorm room, eating ramen noodles and planning a future built on love, not luxury. She used to trace circles on my chest and whisper, "I don't need diamonds, Damian. I just need you." Those words felt like gold back then. They felt real. The first few years of marriage were everything I'd hoped for. We rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment, shopped at Target, and celebrated anniversaries at chain restaurants. Sarah worked as a marketing assistant, and together we were climbing toward that American dream, slowly, steadily, the way normal people do. By year 3, my salary had jumped to $65,000, then $75,000, and finally settled at $85,000 by our 5th anniversary. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We could afford nice dinners, weekend getaways, and yes, even some luxuries here and there. I thought we were winning at life. But somewhere between year 5 and 6, Sarah discovered Instagram. What started as innocent scrolling became an obsession that consumed her like a virus. She'd spend hours studying influencers, their designer handbags, their perfect makeup, their exotic vacations. The woman who once laughed at people who spent $300 on jeans was now screenshotting Chanel purses and showing me apartments that cost more than my annual salary. "Look how beautiful this is," she'd say, her eyes glowing with a hunger I'd never seen before. "Don't you want to give me beautiful things, Damian?" The request started small. A $200 foundation that some influencer swore by. Then a $600 designer jacket that was an investment piece. Each purchase came with the same justification. She deserved nice things. Other husbands spoiled their wives. Why was I being so cheap? When I'd gently remind her about our budget, about the house we were still saving for, her face would transform. The loving wife I married would disappear, replaced by someone cold and calculating. "You make $85,000 a year, Damian. We should be living better than this." The way she said this, like our life was some kind of prison sentence, made my stomach turn. By year 7, Sarah had quit comparing us to our friends and started comparing us to people on social media. Strangers. People whose entire lives were curated performances. She'd throw these explosive tantrums when I couldn't afford the latest trend, slamming cabinet doors and giving me the silent treatment for days. "Jennifer's husband bought her a Louis Vuitton bag for no reason," she'd hiss. "What's wrong with you that you can't do the same?" I found myself working extra hours, picking up freelance projects, desperately trying to keep up with demands that grew bigger every month. But it was never enough. Nothing I did was ever enough. The woman I'd fallen in love with was gone, replaced by someone who measured my love in dollar signs. And the most terrifying part? I was starting to believe maybe she was right. Maybe I was failing her. Maybe a real man would find a way to give his wife everything she wanted, no matter the cost. The night everything shattered, I came home from a particularly brutal 14-hour coding marathon. My eyes were bloodshot, my back ached, and all I wanted was to collapse into bed next to my wife. Instead, I found Sarah in the living room, surrounded by shopping bags like some twisted Christmas morning. Nordstrom, Saks, Tiffany & Company. Labels that made my credit card balance flash before my eyes like a warning sign. "Sarah, what is all this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up from her phone, not even bothering to hide the guilt in her eyes. I deserved a little shopping therapy, she said, that familiar defensive edge creeping into her voice. I've been so stressed lately. Stressed about what? I was the one working myself to death, trying to fund her fantasies. That's when I saw it. A credit card statement peeking out from beneath a Hermes box. But it wasn't our credit card. The name on it was Sarah Mitchell, her maiden name. My blood turned to ice as I grabbed the paper. $15,000. Maxed out. And this was just one statement. What the hell is this, Sarah? I held up the paper, my hands shaking. You opened credit cards behind my back? Her face went pale for just a moment before the mask slipped back into place. Damian, calm down. It's not a big deal. Everyone does this. Everyone does not do this, I exploded, my voice echoing off the walls. We agreed on every major purchase. We had a budget. We had plans. That's when she stood up, her eyes blazing with a fury I'd never seen before. Your precious budget, she spat. Do you know how embarrassing it is to tell my friends I can't afford a simple vacation because my husband is too cheap to live a little? Cheap? The word hit me like a physical blow. Sarah, I work 60-hour weeks. I've taken on 3 freelance projects this month alone just to keep up with your spending. How is that cheap? She stepped closer, her finger jabbing at my chest like a weapon. Other men figure it out, Damian. They get promotions. They start businesses. They find ways to give their wives what they want. But you just make excuses. The slap came out of nowhere. Her palm connected with my cheek so hard that stars exploded behind my eyes. The living room went dead silent except for the sound of my own breathing. Sarah had never hit me before, never even raised a hand in anger. But there she stood, chest heaving, looking at me like I was the monster. Sarah! I touched my burning cheek, my voice barely a whisper. I want $5,000 a month, she said, her voice cold as winter. That's my lifestyle budget. Figure it out, or I'm done. 5,000? I stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Sarah, that's more than our mortgage. That's more than we spend on everything else combined. I don't care. She crossed her arms, and I saw something in her eyes that made my stomach drop. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't even a negotiation. This was an ultimatum delivered by someone who had already made her choice. I've already talked to a lawyer, Damian. I know what I'm entitled to in a divorce. So you can either find a way to make me happy, or you can explain to everyone why your marriage failed because you couldn't provide for your wife. The room spun around me. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of building a life together, and she was ready to throw it all away because I couldn't fund her Instagram fantasies. But the worst part? The absolute worst part was seeing the satisfaction in her eyes. She thought she had me trapped. She thought I'd cave, just like I always did. That night, lying awake next to a woman who felt like a stranger, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. Sarah hadn't just changed. She had been planning this. The credit cards, the lawyer consultation, the perfectly calculated ultimatum. This was a woman who had been preparing for war while I was still trying to save our marriage. The next morning, Sarah left for her usual girls' brunch, a weekly ritual that had started around the same time as her luxury obsession. But something about her behavior seemed different, more secretive, more guilty. As I watched her carefully apply makeup that cost more than most people's groceries, I made a decision that would change everything. I was done being naive. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I started digging. Years of being a software engineer had taught me that every digital action leaves a trail. And Sarah had been sloppy with hers. Her laptop was still logged into her email, her social media accounts, even her banking apps. What I found in the next 3 hours destroyed every remaining piece of trust I had in my marriage. First, the credit cards. Not just one, but 5 different cards, all opened over the past 8 months. Combined debt, $47,000. My hands shook as I scrolled through purchase after purchase. Designer clothes, jewelry, spa treatments, expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never heard of. But here's what made my blood boil. Half of these purchases were for 2 people. 2 meals, 2 spa treatments, 2 first-class tickets to Las Vegas. My wife was living a double life, and she wasn't living it alone. The social media evidence was even worse. Sarah had been posting constantly. Photos of designer bags, expensive wines, luxury hotel rooms, but she'd blocked me from seeing most of it. To the world, she looked like a wealthy woman living her best life. The comments made me sick. Your husband spoils you so well. Goals. Living the dream. She was performing wealth we didn't have, funded by debt she'd hidden from me. But the final betrayal was in her messages. Thread after thread with someone named Marcus. The conversation started innocent enough, compliments on her photos, casual flirting. But they'd escalated quickly into something that made me want to punch through the computer screen. Can't wait to see you tonight, beautiful. Dinner at the Continental again? Of course, baby. You know how much I love when you spoil me. Your husband has no idea what he's missing out on. If you were mine, I'd give you everything. Maybe someday I will be yours. Just need to figure out the logistics. The logistics. Like I was some kind of obstacle to work around, not a human being she'd promised to love and honor. I scrolled through months of messages, each one a dagger through my heart. Marcus was wealthy, a divorced real estate developer with more money than sense, and Sarah had been playing him like a violin, just like she'd been playing me. The difference was, he was enjoying the game. There were photos they'd sent each other. Sarah wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. Marcus in expensive suits, flashing watches that cost more than my car. They looked like a couple. They acted like a couple. The only thing standing between them and making it official was the inconvenient fact that Sarah was still married to me. But apparently, they'd been working on that problem too. I found the email thread with her divorce attorney, dated 3 weeks ago. She hadn't just consulted with a lawyer, she'd hired one. They'd been strategizing about how to maximize her settlement, how to paint me as financially controlling, how to claim she deserved alimony despite having no job and massive secret debt. The attorney's advice was chilling. Document every instance where your husband refused reasonable requests for lifestyle expenses. We need to establish a pattern of financial abuse. Financial abuse, for not wanting to go into debt for designer handbags. But the most sickening part was the plan they'd laid out. Sarah was supposed to make increasingly unreasonable demands, document my refusals, and then claim I was controlling and emotionally abusive. The $5,000 ultimatum wasn't desperation, it was a trap. She wanted me to say no so she could add it to her evidence pile. I sat in that chair for 20 minutes, staring at the screen, feeling like my entire world had been revealed as an elaborate lie. The woman I'd loved, supported, and bent over backward to please had been systematically planning my destruction while sleeping in my bed every night. But here's the thing about being betrayed this completely. It doesn't just break your heart. It clarifies your mind. Sarah thought she was playing chess while I was playing checkers. She thought I was the same naive, desperate husband who would do anything to save his marriage. She was wrong. If she wanted to play games, I was about to show her what a real strategist looked like. I spent the rest of the day documenting everything. Screenshots, printed emails, bank statements, credit reports. I created a digital fortress of evidence that would protect me and expose her. Then I made a call to the best divorce attorney in the city. Ironically, the same one who'd refused to take Sarah's case due to a conflict of interest. Turns out, Marcus had used him in his own divorce 2 years ago. Small world. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. I had to sit across from Sarah at dinner, make small talk, pretend I didn't know she was texting her lover while I was in the same room, but I needed time to build my case properly. I needed her to feel completely secure in her deception. The night before I planned to confront her, Sarah made her final mistake. She came home from another girls' night at 2 a.m., reeking of expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. Her lipstick was smudged, her hair was disheveled, and she had the audacity to kiss my forehead before sliding into bed next to me. "Sorry I'm late, honey," she whispered. "Traffic was terrible." At 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. Right. The next morning, I woke up before dawn and prepared for war. I'd taken the day off work, hired a professional process server, and arranged for my attorney to be present for what was about to happen. Everything was in place. Sarah was in the kitchen when the doorbell rang, sipping her usual overpriced coffee and scrolling through her phone. Probably texting Marcus about their next rendezvous. "I'll get it," I said, though I already knew who it was. The process server handed me the papers with professional courtesy. Divorce filing, restraining order for financial accounts, and a motion for emergency spousal support prevention, all based on evidence of infidelity and financial fraud. "Sarah," I called out, my voice surprisingly steady, "could you come here, please?" She appeared in the doorway, still in her silk pajamas that cost more than most people's monthly grocery budget. "What's going on?" "Who was at the door?" I handed her the papers and watched her face cycle through confusion, shock, and then pure, undiluted panic. "What is this?" she stammered, her hands shaking as she flipped through the pages. "It's called Consequences," I said. "I know about Marcus. I know about the credit cards. I know about the attorney consultations. I know everything, Sarah." The color drained from her face like water from a bathtub. "Damian, I can explain." "Explain what? How you've been cheating on me for months while planning to destroy me financially? How you've been living a double life funded by secret debt? How you hired a lawyer to paint me as abusive for not bankrolling your affair?" She sank into a chair, the papers scattered around her like evidence at a crime scene. "It's not what you think. Marcus and I, we're just friends." I pulled out my phone and started reading. "Can't wait to have you all to myself, baby. Just a few more weeks, and we'll be free." That was from yesterday, Sarah. Yesterday. Her composure cracked completely. The mask she'd been wearing for months finally slipped, revealing the desperate, selfish person underneath. "Damian, please, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but I love you." "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "You love what I could provide. You love the security of having a backup plan while you shopped for someone wealthier. But you never loved me." That's when she exploded. The real Sarah, the one I'd been catching glimpses of for months, finally showed herself completely. She lunged at me, her perfectly manicured nails aiming for my face. "You bastard!" she screamed. "You think you're so smart? I gave you the best years of my life." I caught her wrists before she could scratch me, holding her at arm's length while she thrashed like a wild animal. "You gave me lies, debt, and betrayal. That's what you gave me." "Let go of me!" She was sobbing now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. "This is assault. I'll call the police." "Go ahead," I said, releasing her arms. "Explain to them how you're the victim here. I'm sure they'd love to hear about your $47,000 in secret debt and your boyfriend." She collapsed onto the floor, her whole body shaking with sobs. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. This was the woman I'd planned to grow old with, after all. But then I remembered the calculated cruelty of her plan, the way she'd tried to gaslight me into believing I was the problem. "The accounts are frozen," I continued, my voice steady despite the chaos. The credit cards are reported as fraud since I never authorized them. And Marcus? I sent him copies of all your conversations, including the ones where you called him a pathetic old man who's easy to manipulate. He wasn't too happy about that. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with horror. You didn't. I did. Turns out he thought you actually cared about him. Funny how that works. Over the next month, Sarah's carefully constructed world fell apart piece by piece. Marcus cut off all contact and financial support the moment he realized he was just another Mark. The credit card companies came after her for the fraudulent debt. Her social media followers turned on her when the truth came out. Nothing destroys an influencer's credibility like being exposed as a fraud. The divorce was swift and brutal. With evidence of adultery and financial misconduct, she got nothing. No alimony, no settlement, no half of my assets. Just a pile of debt and a reputation in ruins. 6 months later, I ran into her at a grocery store. She was working as a cashier, her designer clothes replaced by a polyester uniform. Her Instagram had been deleted, her luxury lifestyle reduced to a studio apartment and a 10-year-old Honda. She saw me in line, and her face crumpled with shame. "Damian," she whispered, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." For the first time since our marriage ended, I felt genuinely sad for her. Not because she was suffering, she'd earned every bit of that, but because she'd thrown away something real for something fake. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Sarah," I said. And I meant it. These days, I'm building a new life with someone who understands that love isn't measured in dollars. Emma is a teacher who drives a used car and shops at thrift stores, and she makes me laugh the way Sarah used to before social media poisoned her mind. We're saving for a house together. A real partnership where we both contribute and both sacrifice. Sometimes I wonder if Sarah ever thinks about the life we could have had if she'd just been grateful for what we already had. But then, I remember that some people are never satisfied, no matter how much you give them. And that's not love, that's just greed wearing a wedding dress. I learned that when someone shows you their true priorities, believe them the first time. Real love doesn't come with a price tag, and the right person will build a life with you, not expect you to fund their fantasies. Sarah taught me that the hard way, but she taught me well. And for that, I suppose I should thank her.